When a resolute young fellow steps up to the great bully, the world, and takes him boldly by the beard, he is often surprised to find it comes off in his hand, and that it was only tied on to scare away the timid adventurer. Ralph Waldo Emerson. For the past few months, I've been rereading John Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie. The book was given to me by my grandmother when I was in college, and I first read it in my 20s, and I'm reading it again now in my 50s, just a few years younger than Steinbeck was when he set out across America in 1960 and wrote this account. It's not a difficult book, but it has been more emotionally challenging than I remembered. I found myself reading it only a few pages at a time. Some books kind of wait for us, you know? I remembered how the book ended. I remembered Steinbeck's account of the white women known as the cheerleaders in New Orleans in the 60s, screaming abuses at a small black girl integrating into public schools. And I remembered his encounter with a young white man who defended them and spoke of segregation as a duty. Near the end of the book, as the conversation with this young man escalates, Steinbeck's giving him a ride, he pulls his car to the side of the road and orders the young man out. He actually says, "Get out, I want to get rid of you." And as Steinbeck drives away, the man screams racial slurs after him. Reflecting on the moment, Steinbeck writes, "I guess when they're drafting peacemakers, they'd better pass me by." And in that moment, and in the margin beside that sentence, I wrote, "Me too." You know, I've spent much of my life trying to understand people, build bridges, find common ground. I still believe that these things matter, but I've also come to believe that there are moments when peacemaking is not the highest calling. I've grown weary of these cliches of polite and domesticated culture. Be kind, be compassionate, always be loving. There are moments that just simply call for clarity, moments that call for courage, moments that call for saying no and for setting boundaries. The title of my memoir is Out of Line for Greater Well-Being, as so many of you know if you've been following me. And looking back, nearly every meaningful and life-giving turn in my life began when I stepped out of line. That's where the freedom lies, religiously, culturally, politically, and in my sexual orientation. Not because I've enjoyed it, not because stepping out of line is easy. It certainly is not. It can be quite challenging and painful, but because staying in the line eventually costs too much of my own life and well-being, which I've written about. And this is why Emerson's words have stayed with me for so many years. Much of my life has involved confronting one fear after another. Fear of speaking honestly, like I'm trying to do now. Fear of standing apart. Fear of disappointing others. Oh my goodness. Fear of the myths and the myth makers. The Trump movement, this what I've heard called last defiant gasp, and it is the last gasp if we have anything to say about it, this last defiant gasp of white Christian fundamentalism and cultural supremacy has reminded me how powerful these myths can appear. But it's also reminded me of something Emerson understood, that much of what intimidates us derives its ongoing power from our reluctance to challenge it in ourselves and I would say externally. We assume that the bully is stronger than we are. We assume the crowd is larger, you know? We assume the consequences of speaking plainly will be unbearable or will have fearful consequences. And then one day, we reach out and we pull on the beard, and it comes off in our hand. And the older I get, the less fearful I've become. The myths have lost their power, and they lose their power when we stop fearing them. The myth makers lose their power when we stop following them, when we stop listening to them. Racism loses its power when enough people refuse to accommodate it. Corruption loses its power when enough people refuse to normalize it. The abuse of power itself loses its power when enough people refuse to bow down before it. So sooner or later, every generation must decide whether it will live by fear or by conscience and courage. As for me, I think it's clear that I've made my choice. How about you?